Hello and welcome to this half-season review edition of the FPL Scope podcast. I am your host Mathias, and as you can see, my current rank right here is absolutely terrible. And we're halfway through the season, game week 19. 19 more game weeks to go after this one, and I have a real big task at hand to get into the hundreds of thousands. I want to finish inside the top million. I've finished only once outside of the top million in my whole FPL history, and that was back in my first season where I played like 2 game weeks. And apart from that, I've finished within the top 100,000 only 3 times since 2010-11 season, I think. As you can see right above me here, I have my previous 5 season ranks. Only one of those seasons were pretty bad, and that was 2020/21, the Corona season. I was chasing one of my mini leagues and suffered from it, so that's one of my few bad seasons from the last few years. But getting to 263,000 now seems like an impossible task, but I'm still going to try. But before I do that, I got to look back from the past half season and see what mistakes I made, how I've been unlucky, have I made wrong decisions, and just take it from there, really. For me, it's just going to be like a therapy session. I'm going to go through everything that went wrong for me in FPL and try to justify my moves, even though some of them have been really bad. I think you might get some knowledge from that as well. I'm going to try to make some points as I go along every game week to address the pitfalls you can go through as a FPL manager, especially like I have done this season where I started off really badly and the errors are just compounded, and now I'm staring up at every single table that I'm in, basically, trying to climb the table towards the end of the season. But there's a lot of game weeks to go through, 19 game weeks in total, so I'm not going to waste too much time on this intro. I'm just going to... You can see the guy right there, Pep Guardiola. He's going to come up a lot, or his players is going to come up a lot as a big reason why I've done so badly this season. I haven't even done anything that crazy. I've captain Hall on every game week. I've had like all the Andreas Pereira, Ward, all those guys on the bench. I haven't really strayed that far off the template that much, but basically every 50-50 decision that I made have gone the wrong way. So let's just jump into it. Game week 1. There's a lot to explain here because that's where my bad start came from. Starting with all the players that I didn't pick, the template players that I didn't have. As you can see, the 3 most popular players that I don't have, or that I didn't have in Game Week 1 was Cancelo, Martinelli, and Kane. And also Reece James is also another huge player that most people had. Cancelo, I opted to go with 2 Liverpool defenders instead because I felt like Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold had better attacking threat. I thought Liverpool and Man City's defenses would be sort of similar, maybe a slight edge to Man City, but I did not expect Liverpool to be that bad and Man City to be that good at the start of the season. But yeah, Cancelo, I'll get more into him later. There's a lot to talk about Cancelo, but for now, or at least for Game Week 1, I figured I could cover him by having Kyle Walker. So that's where I went with Kyle Walker rather than Reece James. The reason I didn't want to go with Reece James is because I saw that Thomas Tuchel used him at right centre back quite a lot. He's also obviously injury prone. He's always been an FPL troll, and as you'll see in this season review, he's been pretty awful this season. And we've had him, or at least I had him most of the season. But he also punished me at the start of the season. He got a clean sheet in the first match in Game Week 1, where I didn't have him, of course, and Liverpool conceded. Liverpool had really easy matches, but they kept conceding goals and were just atrocious at the start of the season. So especially defensively. Offensively, not so much. Salah, obviously, a great captain pick in Game Week 1. And as you'll see also eventually, Luis Diaz was also a better pick. There was like a divide between having Robertson and having Luis Diaz at the start of the season. I went with Robertson personally because I actually had Robertson in like my first draft rather than Trent Alexander-Arnold because I figured from last season, from Game Week 5 onwards, Robertson had more points than Alexander-Arnold, and I figured that's partly because Luis Diaz was in the team now, and Robertson had been amazing going forward and also defensively. But then I also bought into the hype. Everyone had Trent Alexander-Arnold from Game Week 1. He was like one of the most nailed template players pretty much in the whole game. People are talking about him like he should be 9.0, he should be 9.5 priced. I never bought into that hype. I always figured that the thing with defenses or defenders is that you have so many like 4.5, 5.0 defenders that are really good. So the value, like you can't really compare a 7.5 defender to a 7.5 midfielder because there's way better cheap options in defense than there are in midfield. And that has proven to be right. I don't think anyone will be clamoring for Trent Alexander-Arnold or any fullback or defensive player to be 9.0 this season. But big at the back was like a huge talking point at the start of the season, and it failed miserably. There's not that many good defenders. There's only one, Kieran Trippier, who's been amazing the whole season. Just finally, before I move on from Game Week 1, I actually had a different team in mind right up until like an hour before the deadline, or the final 24 hours before the first deadline, I was like contemplating, do I go with Kane? Because I really wanted both Kane and Haaland, and I didn't want to drop either of them. But at the end, I figured I need more flexibility in midfield. I need to have an easy way to get one of the 8.0 midfielders, because that was also another talking point at the start of the season. Who do you want? Is it Bowen? Do you want Madison? Do you want Luis Diaz, as I mentioned? Mason Mount was interesting. Foden. There's so many 8.0 midfielders, and Saka, obviously. So I figured, I'll just go with one of the 8.0 midfielders, or 8.5 in this instance with Bowen. And that was a massive mistake, because having Kane would have been amazing. He's going to punish me throughout the whole season, as he just did now in Game Week 19. We'll get to that pretty soon. But yeah, that was a lot on the Game Week 1. Let's move quickly along to Game Week 2. It's not really that much to talk about in Game Week 2. Jesus was amazing with 19 points, obviously. The one thing is that I didn't make any transfers, which is what I usually do after a wildcard, after the first game week. Every time there's a restart, basically, I always want to see what my players can do in 2 game weeks and then save up on different transfers so I can make more substantive changes in the following game week. So I decided to do 0 transfers, and as you can see, the 3 players that I didn't own that were the most popular all scored a lot of points. Cancelo with 11 points. He outscored Walker by 5 points, which kind of went against my own thinking of Walker can cover Cancelo, because I think Cancelo got he got a decent assist actually. He was in the box and passed it into I think it was an own goal. But yeah, he got 11 points from that assist and some bonus points. Martinelli as well. Didn't touch on that at the start. I have Neto and I don't have Martinelli, which is like one of the biggest mistakes I did. I was so sure about Neto. He was so good in the preseason. I've had pretty much ever since he got injured, or before he was injured badly, he was such an amazing player that I loved seeing. So I figured as soon as he's been healthy for a while and he can play, I'm going to have him in my team, and he's going to be so good. I was so surprised when he was 5.0 in terms of price. Or was it 5.5? I can't even remember now. Anyways, I thought it was way too cheap, but it turned out he was terrible because he played for Wolverhampton, who didn't really score that many goals at all. Neto struggled himself. Bowden's actually got some points, but Neto just couldn't figure it out. I think he's still hampered by the injury. I still have faith in Neto eventually, but I don't know when that is, and I'm probably not going to back him anytime soon. But yeah, I went with Neto, and at the same time, I did not have that much belief in Martinelli, who was obviously a huge template pick at the start of the season. The reason for not choosing Martinelli was that I thought Arsenal would rotate a bit more. I thought they had so many good players. They have Fabio Vieira, signed from Porto, he's an amazing player. Emil Smith-Rowe has played a lot of matches the last few years, and Eddie Nketiah just signed a new contract because he was expecting playing time as well. So I figured with all those players vying for a first-team spot, and then Arsenal having Martinelli on top of Ødegaard, who's the Martin Ødegaard. I'm Norwegian, so that's why I can say his name properly. But anyways, Ødegaard, the captain for Arsenal, he's not going to get subbed off that much. Gabriel Jesus, like the main star striker that they just signed, he's not going to get subbed off that much. And Saka is obviously the big star at Arsenal. He's not going to get subbed off that much. So I figured Martinelli would be the one to rotate with Vieira and Nketiah and Smith-Rowe. But Martinelli, to be fair, has stepped up immensely. He's been amazing this whole season, and he's made that spot his own. And obviously, Emil Smith-Rowe has been injured the whole season. Just he's always 2 weeks away, it seems like, and never gets ready to play a match. Even through the World Cup break, he didn't get fit. So I don't know what's happening with Smith-Rowe. Fabio Vieira has been pretty good the times he's gotten the chance, but he rarely gets the chance because Arsenal have been mainly playing with the never change a winning team mentality, and they've stuck with the same players, and they're doing really well, so you can't really blame them. So Martinelli, realized pretty early I made a mistake with him. He's been amazing this season, and as you can see in the next game week, I'm going to rectify that mistake. Reece James, as I said, so many doubts about him, but he still scored in game week 2 because they played against Spurs. They conceded. Finally, Tuchel had to play him at right wing back, and then he scored, obviously. So I figured from this point on, he's definitely going to play Reece James as a right wing back, but sadly I was mistaken. So yeah, in game week 3, brought in both James and Martinelli. Had to rectify my mistakes, I thought. Yeah, Martinelli, that worked out. Also, I got to mention that I did 3 transfers. I did my first hit of the season. I've done plenty of hits throughout the season, and I think it's a mistake. In this instance, it wasn't that big of a mistake because Tony ended up being a pretty good player for me. But it sort of spurred me on to do more hits, and as we'll see, it hasn't really worked out that much. As far as the game week goes, pretty terrible game week. Not terrible, considering what we're gonna see eventually. I benched Trippier for my first and only time this season. He scored a goal against Man City. I also had the 50-50 decision of playing either Andreas or Nico Williams, and I ended up with Nico Williams because he had kept a clean sheet against my favorite team, West Ham, the week before. And obviously he didn't do anything. He looked threatening at the start of the season in terms of scoring goals and potentially getting clean sheets, but didn't do either. While Andreas scored, I think, in game week 3, got 8 points on my bench. So yeah, I was punished from that. Liverpool again struggled. I sold Robertson. I sold Bailey, who was another preseason favorite who didn't really live up to the expectations at the start of the season. And Wilson got injured in the City game, so that's why I transferred him out as well. Or he didn't get... I transferred him out before he got injured, but anyways, he played Man City, and I don't know. The hit was probably stupid anyway, but it worked out in the end with Wilson getting injured and Tony scoring. But that's enough about game week 3. Didn't really talk about it that much as well. The goalkeepers I haven't mentioned. I went with Ward and Everson to start the season. I figured rather than going with someone like Ramsdale or Sanchez, a lot of people did, I was going to go and hope that Leicester would have a bounce back season. They sort of had a disappointing season last season. I figured they would be a lot better this season. I can get a starting goalkeeper guaranteed for 8.0 together with Ward and Everson for 4.0 each. And I figured Leicester would keep some clean sheets, but at the start of the season, they were atrocious and kept conceding every single match. So as you'll see, I'll have to change the goalkeepers as well, which also eventually cost me points. So yeah, a lot of mistakes have been made. Let's move on to game week 4. This is the game week where Liverpool played against Bournemouth and won 9-0. I had Salah as captain, obviously, and he got 3 points from a 9-0 win. Most people did that mistake, to be fair, but Haaland with 17 points. It's a shame to miss out on the first hat-trick from the Norwegian Viking, as it were. But at least Trent Alexander-Arnold, 17 points. Finally, he's back to his own self, I thought. But as we'll get to see as well, he wasn't cured at all. Liverpool still struggled, even though he scored and got a clean sheet and everything against Bournemouth. That only made him stay in my team for longer, which hurt me in the end anyways. Reece James, this is his only return for my team, 7 points. And game week 4, I think, is the final game week where he's actually had a single return. After that, he's just been injured. He's gotten 2 points, 2-pointers, 1-pointers, everything like that. Just awful, really. As you can see on the most popular players that I don't own, Luis Diaz, this is the game week he exploded against Bournemouth in the 9-0 win, of course. 14 points, massive loss for me, gain from everyone else. And Kane as well, he keeps punishing me for not having faith in him from the start. I was so close to having Kane, but I just thought the premium wasn't the right thing to go with. So sadly, I switched away from Kane, and that has cost me yet again. And we'll see in game week 5. I did 2 transfers. Finally, Jared Bowen just wasn't his start of the season, hasn't been his season so far. He's been one of the most wasteful players in FPL as well. West Ham have been terrible. This is another pitfall. Like I said, I'm a West Ham fan, and I have backed some West Ham players throughout this season, and it has always gone wrong. Sadly for me, it has gone... Those players have produced at different times of the season, but I haven't had them then. The 3 players are Bowen, Suma, and Skamaka. They've all had spurts in the season where they've been really good, but I've never owned them when they have been good. I've owned them when they've been pretty bad. So we'll get to see that pretty soon. Obviously, Haaland hat-trick, 34 points. Amazing for him. But once again, Cancelo just doubles the point of Walker. I couldn't cover him at Walker because he keeps getting way more points than Walker because he keeps getting assists and goals. I think this was the Nottingham Forest game where he had like a long shot going in. At least I got an assist point for Bernardo this game week. I figured I should buy Bernardo because he had gotten, I think, 22 points 2 game weeks before this. And it felt like sort of a nice differential to get from Man City. At this point, Foden hadn't really produced anything. I think Foden, I think he was like around 3 or 4 points per game, I think, in his first few starts of the season. So he wasn't really that big of an option. I don't even know if I could afford him. I have 1.1 million in the bank, as you can see above me here. But I think I went to Bernardo because he had been pretty good, and I figured this might be one of those purple patches like he had last season. He might be really good. He was decent, to be fair, but not the best, especially considering I blocked off getting Cancelo. Also, obviously, I made a goalkeeper switch. Like I said, I got in Robert Sanchez. Sanchez got 26 points from the first 4 game weeks, which was really annoying to me because he was the one goalkeeper. It was either him or Ramsdale, really, and both of those players did really well in the first 4 game weeks when Danny Ward was just awful. So, yeah, another terrible outcome for me as well there. Once again, benched Andreas for 6 points. I always seem to bench him when he scores and play him when he doesn't do anything, as we'll see in the next few game weeks. So let's move on to game week 6. Finally, some good news. Finally, a good game week for me, mostly because of Ivan Toney's hat-trick against Leeds. One of my few great memories of the season was Toney scoring a hat-trick. Finally, the hit I made in, game week 3, finally paid off with Toney. Hat-trick, 17 points. Haaland again delivered with 18 points, 9 times 2 as a captain. Trippier again, 8 points. Trippier, gotta say, one of the heroes of this season. I've had him from start to finish, and he's been amazing every week. He's been my one shining light, really, throughout the season. So I can't thank him enough, because without him, I don't even know where I'd be. It would be super terrible. But yeah, again, Sanchez, not a good game week for him. Once again, 1 point. Stopped keeping clean sheets after I got him. Typical. Nico Williams, 4 points. I don't even know what that is from. I think it's an assist and a yellow card or something. But anyways, my team wasn't that good. I saved my transfers. Kane again, 9 points. As you can see, Kane just keeps scoring, and I should have had him at the start of the season. Moving on to game week 7, and here we have the blank game week, really, because this is when Queen Elizabeth died. So all the games were postponed, and this also created a major shift in FPL, because obviously I saved the transfer from game week 6, so I had 2 available transfers. So that actually made my thinking change a bit. I was originally going to wildcard in game week 8, like most people ended up doing, but I figured since my team, I don't have any Brighton players apart from Sanchez, who I swapped out in this game week for Nick Pope. Brighton obviously didn't have that many games. They didn't have the game week 7 game. They didn't have game week 8 game. So a lot of people had Gross and stuff at this point in time. Gross and Trossard and stuff. I didn't have any of those players. So I figured I have a pretty decent team actually from game week 8 onwards. I had a pretty good plan going from game week 8 onwards. So I figured I can save my wildcard until game week 13, which is the game week after Arsenal and City blank. And then I can load up on Arsenal and City players from game week 13 onwards, and that will help me immensely with my rank. It's what I thought, but as we'll see, that is not going to pan out as I intended. But yeah, moving on to game week 8, 3 transfers made actually, just to solidify the team after the blank game week. And this is when most people did the wildcard. A lot of people had the variations of this team that I have. It's just a couple key differences that proved to be pretty fatal. One of them being Cancelo, obviously, yet again. He got 9 points in this game week, and he was... Well, in terms of points, he was amazing at this stage of the season. His underlying numbers kept being pretty bad. Like not bad per se, but not anywhere close to where his points tally was. So yeah, Cancelo got 9 points. I also went with De Bruyne rather than going with Foden. That was also going to be a costly mistake, as we'll see. I mean, De Bruyne played really well, but Foden for 4 million less scored a lot more points. Not in this game week, but we'll see in the next game week that he scored more points from that point on, which was kind of weird. Foden is one of the most like strange players this season for me. He didn't really show that much in the first 7 game weeks, and then for some reason, people had faith in him. I think City had decent matches, and Foden looked like he was playing quite regularly. So people put faith in Foden. I put faith in De Bruyne because I had the money to do it as well. I had the money to do it because I didn't get Cancelo. For some reason, that's a big mistake for me. But will also bite me in the ass later, as we'll see. But anyways, I went with Zuma. West Ham at this point had pretty good underlying stats, and they had really good fixtures, so I figured Zuma would be really good for me. We'll see what happens with that. And then I figured, De Bruyne has been better than Foden so far this season, and it's going to be a huge advantage to have him. And I obviously have Bernardo as well from City. So yeah, that was my thinking with that. Well, obviously I couldn't get both Foden and Cancelo because I had Bernardo. Probably could have done some different transfers, but anyways, Foden and Cancelo was the way to go at this point. And most of the people who did the wildcarding game against, well, not most. Foden was a popular player, as you can see here. He was the 3rd most popular player that I didn't own. But yeah, some people got Foden this game week, and others got him in game week 9 after he scored 8 points in this game week. And as you'll see, that will be a lot of points missed from me. Just want to talk about one more thing. This is my 2nd hit of the season, and this was a disastrous hit. Going from Tony to Mitrovic. It was just, I felt like Mitrovic was a must-have at this point. I feel like I needed to get him. Obviously, I did the other moves. I don't even know what my thinking was here, because I have 2 million in the bank. I had to sell Walker to get De Bruyne. Okay, so I had to sell Walker to get De Bruyne, because I had 3 City players already. And then I felt like I needed to have Mitrovic, because he scored 6.5 points per match in the first 7 game weeks, or the first 6 game weeks before the Queen's death. And then from game week 8 onwards, he had amazing matches. So everyone was getting Mitrovic, of course. And we all know what happens when everyone gets Mitrovic. He trolls us and he flops. And that's what he did yet again. And Tony ended up actually the next few game weeks for Tony wasn't that good, but I missed out on a huge score from him eventually, which was really bad for me. So taking a -4 hit to switch to do like a sideways move with Tony to Mitrovic, really stupid in hindsight, especially since Mitrovic ended up trolling us all, as he always does. But yeah, that was game week 8. A lot of people at this point did the wildcard. They brought in the likes of Foden, Cancelo, obviously, that I didn't have. Some people opted for Bowen, as we'll see in the next game week. Provided some points. Bowen that I had previously in the season, and obviously scored 14 points, I think, in game week 9 when he played Wolverhampton. But yeah, a lot of people brought in players on the wildcard. I felt like this team that I have here is pretty close to what people had on the wildcard, so I felt like I could survive and take advantage of it in game week 13 and onwards. Which actually, until game week 13, it didn't go too badly, but yeah, we'll get to see that here. Game week 9 was actually a really good game week for me because I brought in Maddison. He got 18 points. That was also part of my strategy. I knew I could get Maddison in game week 9 and then Saha in game week 10. Those were 2 of the more popular players on the wildcard in game week 8, and I could get him at the most opportune time because I think Maddison had a pretty difficult match in game week 8. Saha had a difficult match in game week 9, but I could get him one by one in the following game weeks after everyone else wildcarded and brought him in. So I figured I could cover myself that way. This was an amazing game week in total for me, with Haaland getting the hat-trick against Man City, obviously. But even though it was an amazing game week with more than 100 points for me, not my first in my FPL career, of course, but my first of the season with 100 points, 242k game week rank, really, really, really good. But this is the type of season or game week that I'm used to having, where I'm supposed to be happy. It's really good score and everything, but I'm still pretty annoyed at the players that I don't have. Because as you can see, Foden hat-trick hat-trick against Man United, while De Bruyne only got 8 points. So everyone else, I thought I'd have a huge differential with De Bruyne. Everyone else had Foden, but it was the other way around, as it always has been with Foden and De Bruyne this season for me. I have the wrong player. Foden got 19 points. De Bruyne only got 8. So that annoyed me. Second thing that annoyed me was that I have benched Danny Ward, 8 points. Nick Pope only got 2 points. So huge letdown, and that's going to be a theme going forward with Danny Ward being on my bench, getting a lot of points, and my starting goalkeeper, as always, struggling. So up until this point with my starting goalkeepers, I had Ward in the first 4 game weeks, basically no points. I had Sanchez in the following 2 game weeks, basically no points. And now I brought in Pope, who, to be fair to him, played really well, but he kept getting outscored by Ward, as we'll get to see coming up. So yeah, moving on to game week 10, I finally had enough of Trent Alexander-Arnold. He had been stinking it up all season, really. Liverpool are not the same. Trent was getting subbed off before 60th minute. Liverpool didn't look that good offensively with him either, and they kept conceding goals, as I said. So this, considering I had the wildcard in hand, I figured I could go with some punts, some players that other people didn't have. Obviously, Zaha was a template player, as I just mentioned. And finally, I should also note that Neto stayed in my team until game week 10. He didn't really play that much for me. It was just a bench fodder, really. I didn't really need to sell him because he was just on my bench, really, for not that much money. But yeah, finally I brought in Zaha for this. But as I was mentioning with the Trent Alexander-Arnold out, this is where I figured I could go with a punt because I knew Man City had Liverpool in game week 11 and then they had a blank in game week 12. So buying Cancelo was not really an option for me. But as you can see, that I was punished for that because this was the one match this season where Cancelo has actually been playing the way people expect him to play, or people thought about him before the season at least. He was super involved against Southampton, scored a goal, got an assist, 19 points, huge point swing for everyone else compared to me, who went without him still. And I couldn't really buy him in game week 10 because, like I said, he had Liverpool game week 11 and then blank in game week 12. And then I'll have the wildcard in game week 13 as well, where I can bring him in. So yeah, I was punished majorly from that, especially considering the player I brought in was Ben Chilwell. I figured Chelsea, they had 3 really good matches. I think they played, or 4 really good matches. They played Crystal Palace, Wolverhampton, Aston Villa, and Brentford. 4 matches in a row where they looked really good. They had just started playing Kepa and keeping some clean sheets and stuff. So I figured doubling up on Chelsea defense with the Chelsea fullbacks, Chilwell and James. You all remember last season how amazing they were at the same time at one point in the season. But obviously Chilwell still working his way back to fitness at this point, as he pretty much is always, just like Reece James. Obviously he didn't pan out because he didn't play in the first match. Chelsea kept the clean sheet and Chilwell didn't play. I thought about getting either Cucurella or Chaluba. I ended up going with Chilwell for the higher upside, but then obviously Chaluba started every match for some reason. After Fofana was injured, he just played every single match, which he hasn't done now after the World Cup break, which is kind of confusing. And yeah, Cucurella would have been a safer pick, but like I said, I wanted the higher upside of Chilwell. But yeah, that's pretty much game week 10. Let's move on to game week 11. This is also another pretty good transfer for me. Reece James, I should have mentioned, he got injured in the game week 10 fixture. He only got 1 point, even though they got a clean sheet. So he had to be subbed off with an injury, and I was left with only Chilwell as my Chelsea defender. But rather than going with another Chelsea defender in game week 11, I went for Perisic. I figured I don't really need to keep him for that long because I have a wildcard in game week 13. And he had a pretty good match, and he ended up getting an assist or something. Clean sheet, and assist, and yellow card or something. I don't know. 8 points at least. He got an 8-pointer, which was really good for me. Game week 11. Finally, Mitrovic. I haven't mentioned it in the previous game weeks, but he was struggling with injury issues. Didn't really score that many points after I brought him in for a hit in game week 8. And even in this game week 11, where I finally got some points from him, 7 points, the player I transferred out to get him, Ivan Toney, got 12 points this game week, so I still lost out on having Mitrovic rather than Ivan Toney. But yeah, not the best game week. I did get a green arrow, so I mean, it's a decent game week, I guess. But still, mostly just due to Perisic, which was finally a good transfer. Pope and Ward both won 6 points, so they pretty much equaled each other. Yeah, let's move on to game week 12. So this is obviously the game week where Man City and Arsenal blanked. I only had 3 Arsenal and City players at this point because I knew I could get all 3 from each team in game week 13 with my wildcard. So I figured that would be a decent position to be in. But obviously with 3 Arsenal and City players put together on the bench, I needed everyone to play in the starting lineup. And obviously that didn't happen because Chilwell once again didn't play for Chelsea. Got a 0-pointer when Chelsea once again kept a clean sheet. So that was annoying. Yet again also, Ward outscored Pope, 9 points compared to 6. And yeah, pretty much a pretty bad game week. Saha 8 points, one of the few good exceptions. But as you can see, the most popular players that I didn't own didn't really score that much points either. So it was a decent game week all in all. Once again, I did a -4. This was my dilemma was going with either Trossard or Salah. Trossard played Nottingham Forest at home, so I figured that would be an amazing game for him to score a lot of points. But as we know with Trossard, he doesn't score in the easy matches. He only scores in the difficult matches, as we'll also see eventually in the season. I rather went with the safe pick of Salah against my own favorite team, West Ham. I've seen Salah against West Ham earlier score plenty of goals. I figured he could score, but obviously not. Liverpool still won 1-0, so my West Ham lost, but Salah didn't get any points as captain, so I didn't really gain any points from that either. So yeah, but I figured finally I have my wildcard. This is when it turns around. Now I'm actually going to do really well. I'm going to load up on Arsenal and City players. This is going to be amazing. And as you can see, that was so far off the case. I think as you've seen, Kurt Zouma has not been panning out for me. 2 points, 0 points, 2 points, 6 points. And then when I transfer him out, I do the wildcard in game week 13. I transfer him out, and obviously he scores and gets 15 points. And that was pretty much the theme of game week 13. Everything just seemed to go wrong. This is also when we started the podcast with me, Kevin, and Kimo. And we all had pretty terrible game weeks, which was sort of apropos for content creators. I feel like that's a curse that every time people start making content on FPL, they start to struggle. I know that happened with a couple guys. I feel Black Box comes to mind, and I think also Yanni from Fancy Football Scout also had that same phenomenon with him. But yeah, for me, like I said, I feel like this was an amazing team that I had from the start. 3 City players, 3 Arsenal players. The issue was that the City players failed because Pep just hates me and he doesn't want to play the players that I have. They conceded a stupid goal. I think it was, I can't remember what game it was actually. I can't really remember what game it was, but Foden was benched, one of his many benchings before the World Cup, and as we've seen after the World Cup, which has hurt me a lot. Finally, I was going to get Foden in, and at this is the point that he started struggling. Same with Cancelo. Finally, I got Cancelo in, and this was the point he started struggling. Typical. As for the rest of the team, again, Danny Ward, this is a stupid decision for me. Why I didn't go with Ward after he had punished me every single game week before then, I don't really know. I went for David Raya for Brentford. He had gotten 20 points, I think, in the previous 2 game weeks. So I think that's why I went with Raya. But I should have just had the cheapest possible goalkeepers and had Ward. Ward got 8 points, Raya got 2 points. And Raya, as with all my goalkeepers this season, have just stopped. They started conceding goals. They've stopped keeping clean sheets after I brought him in. So yeah, pretty much every player failed apart from Haaland. Scamacca, just to touch on that was like one of my few differentials this game week with the wildcard. He had scored in the previous 2 home matches for West Ham, which were 2 wins against Fulham and Wolverhampton. So I figured at home against Bournemouth, that should be a pretty good match for Scamacca. Obviously, didn't do much, didn't score, got 2 points. West Ham still won the match, but Scamacca didn't do anything. So once again, let down by my own West Ham players. And I chose to start with him against Bournemouth at home rather than going with Bailey. Can't remember who Bailey played against. But yeah, Bailey at least got 13 points. This was the first match after they sacked their manager, Gerrard. And Bailey responded in kind. Actually punted on Bailey rather than going with Andreas as my cheap midfielder because of this reason exactly, that they had gotten a new manager and Bailey had looked promising at points. But yeah, obviously he had to be on the bench. Foden came on and blocked him from coming in as well. So thank you, Foden, yet again. Just an awful game week once again, and I'm down to 2.1 million in my overall rank at this point. Game week rank of 8 million. It's just atrocious, really. Awful game week. Only slightly saved, I guess, by Haaland captain, who everyone had as captain. Moving on, game week 14. Like I said, I tend to not make any transfers, so even though everything had gone terribly the game week before, I figured, okay, I just got to keep my cool. Things might turn around. A lot of the players that I sold on my wildcard played well in game week 13, so I figured, let's just keep faith in my players once again and hope that it turns around. Spoilers, it didn't. The other thing about this game week, which also should really be mentioned, as you can see, Almiron is the second most popular player that I don't own, and I was actually going to own him. This was when Man City had the first match, and obviously the first time the FPL site crashed. So right before the deadline, 10 minutes before the deadline, I figured, okay, Foden's not starting. Let's get Almiron. I figured Foden might get back next game week, so maybe I shouldn't sell him. But I figured Almiron is in amazing form. I need to do it. So I go into the transfer page. I go Foden out, Almiron in, confirm transfer, save transfer. That's it, I think. But nope. FPL crashes as it happens. Almiron gets 12 points, obviously, that I should have had. And my game week is pretty terrible. Once again, Scamacca, yellow card, subbed off at the half. That punt has been terrible. Jesus finally provides actually for me. Arsenal actually did pretty well in this game week with all the Gabriels. Gabriel Magalhaes, Gabriel Martinelli, and Gabriel Jesus. This is the one game week they actually returned for me. But once again, Man City, I was hoping to get a lot of Man City points from game week 13 onwards with my wildcard. But Cancelo 6 points, fair enough. He got his 1 point return after I got him in this game week. Foden, yet again, benched, came on, didn't do anything. Haaland was was out the whole match, wasn't even on the bench. So yeah, once again, Man City just being the bane of my existence and terrible. But I have to at least give shout out to Kieran Trippier, 11 points. Really, really good for me. And yeah, once again, I can't really praise him enough. Trippier, as we'll see in game week 15 as well, 12-pointer from Trippier. This was another good game week for me. Game week 15 brought me up to 1.5 million, which looks really, really good at this point. So yeah, the only thing with this game week is this was another game week where, like the game week before, Man City had their early game. This time I was not going to do the same mistake. I was going to watch the City team news and I was going to act accordingly from the team news. Once again, we were told that Foden and Haaland would not start. So I figured, okay, this is a great game week for De Bruyne. I can't remember I think they had a pretty easy match in this game week. So I figured, okay, I can bring in De Bruyne now and captain him, and he'll be a huge differential and he'll get me a lot of points. But nope, he got 7 points, which was only 2 more points than Haaland, who subbed on and scored in the end. So I just lost a lot of value from Haaland. I could have also brought in Alvarez rather than Wilson. I didn't do that either, which was stupid. Wilson, obviously, he was ill. He was. There was rumors that he was ill before this match, and he still tried to play, but obviously had to sub off. I think at the half, so he only got 1 point. Wilson, while Alvarez scored and got 9 points. So yeah, still, once again, I've had a great game week, but some annoying stuff that I did that messed me up going forward as well. But yeah, one of the good things about this game week was Wilfried Zaha. He actually repaid my faith in him. Finally, I got some Zaha points, and of course it was against my favorite team, West Ham. So yet again, when I win in FPL, I lose in real life. Sadly, Scamacca didn't do anything. 1 point once again. Scamacca, terrible. Another bright spot in this game week, though, was Gabriel Magalhaes, 15 points, scored a goal, clean sheet. That's exactly why I brought him in. That's why he's one of my favorite players. Him along with Trippier combined for 12 or 12 plus 15, 27 points. Salah played really well as well. He probably should have been my captain rather than De Bruyne, but I figured I'd go differential with De Bruyne, which was annoying. Yet again, Ward outscored Raya for the final time. At this point, I was just like, fair enough, I'll go back to Ward. I had faith in Ward from the start of the season. He failed for me, and then he punished me on my bench for the rest of the season. Finally, I'm going to play him. And also, I'd be remiss to not mention Cancelo. Got a red card against Fulham. -2 points. Just typical Cancelo. Every time I have him, he sucks. Every time I don't have him, he's amazing. Just Cancelo in a nutshell, and Man City in a nutshell. This whole debacle after my wildcard, they've just been a thorn in my side every single game week. Even in a good game week like this, they were still messing things up for me. Moving on to game week 16. Like I said, finally I had enough of benching Ward and putting Raya for no points as my starting goalkeeper. Finally, 11 points from Ward. Yes, amazing. Finally, Ward got points, and yet again, it's against West Ham. So yet again, I'm happy with FPL points, but I'm sad about West Ham losing a crucial game against Leicester with Ward getting the clean sheet. And that was pretty much the only good thing about my game week. As you can see, well, apart from Trippier, who's always a good thing about my game week. I love Trippier. I got to mention it again. Gabriel as well, 5 points. Shout out to that guy as well. Gabriel Trippier. Very good. Cancelo, 1 pointer. Can't remember if that was a yellow card or if he just came on or whatever. Game week 16, it's not that long ago, but it feels like I don't want to think about it really. As you can see from my transfers, I figured, I need to get Haaland back in. Obviously, I need to get Haaland back in. I need Haaland. They're playing Brentford at home. I need Haaland, and he blanks. Of course. De Bruyne blanked as well, luckily, so I didn't really lose that many points from that. But I did a -4 yet again. Another hit, which didn't really matter that much. And yet again, I could have brought in Kane rather than Haaland, but nope. Kane, 11 points. Haaland got 2 points. Just typical, really. City, once again, awful for me. Has to be said. Moving on, game week 17. This was not too long ago. This was after the World Cup break, obviously. And I did not that good yet again. I had a good score, 81 points. As you can see, it's slightly higher than average, but it still got me a red arrow because of the players I didn't have. People were contemplating, do we get De Bruyne, do we get Salah? And I was thinking, I'll be clever and I'll get Harry Kane, which turned out to be kind of clever, maybe. We'll see. But anyways, Salah outscored Kane this game week. Liverpool played amazingly. Darwin, 2 points still. Funnily enough, he missed all his chances like he always does. But yeah, I went against the grain with this one with Liverpool. I figured Liverpool have been terrible away all season. I'm not going to back them when they have 3 out of the next 4 matches away. So I figured, yeah, they'll still struggle to score and win. But obviously they didn't because they beat Aston Villa 3-1. So once again, it felt like I had made a mistake. As far as good things from this game week, obviously Rashford, Trippier, Arrizabalaga, all template picks who did really well. Haaland, of course, as well. But once again, benching a lot of points at Almiron. He got 8 points, and I was hoping that either Cancelo or Foden would not play in this game week, and I would get Almiron in. But obviously, Pep had to do, I think it was 3 subs or 2 subs, and 2 of them were Cancelo and Foden in for 1-pointers. So yet again, I'm punished by having Cancelo and Foden when I do have them, even though they punished me when I didn't have them earlier in the season. I've mentioned this. I think I've said this like 8 times now at this point in this recap that City are screwing me. And Chelsea are screwing me again as well. It was Reece James. Obviously, he gets injured like he always does. I had doubts about Cancelo and James because why wouldn't I? They've always failed for me. But I still went along with them. I still went template. I figured, okay, I'll just stay pretty template this time. One thing I didn't do was yet again, didn't go with Martinelli. I went with Nketiah instead, which sort of was the same thing. It's just I lost out money from selling Martinelli. The reason I didn't go with Martinelli and went with Nketiah instead was that there were better midfielders than strikers, I felt like. One of them being Leandro Trossard, who had amazing matches for Brighton. He was going to play as a striker because Welbeck was injured, and I figured Brighton would score a lot of goals, which they have done. But as we've seen, they've scored a lot of goals without Trossard. Moving on to game week 18, we'll see that. 1 point from Trossard. He was subbed off before the hour against Arsenal. Then they ended up scoring 2 goals, almost 3 goals. Mitoma and those guys. Ferguson came on. Brighton they're really good offensively, but somehow their attacking talisman, Trossard, has not been part of any of it after the World Cup break, which was really annoying. This is obviously also finally something right happened with Cancelo, the fact that he didn't come on, so I managed to get Bueno instead. I think that was the first time it's actually worked out for me with Cancelo, and that's because he didn't play. So that tells you all you should know about Cancelo and me. Yeah, I gotta complain about him every single time because I hate that guy, really. Anyways, once again, Trippier, amazing score. The big letdown though this game week was Kane played against Aston Villa at home. I figured Liverpool looked amazing against Aston Villa. Won, or at least offensively, won 3-1 against Aston Villa. This is where Kane gets me a lot of points. Finally, I'm going to have Kane, and a lot of people won't have Kane because he's on 4 yellow cards and he's sort of expensive, and Spurs haven't looked that good. And of course, the final thing is what happened. Spurs didn't look that good. They struggled against Aston Villa. They really sucked, and I kind of lost faith in Kane, and as it would happen, that was a big mistake because I sold Kane for Darwin because I figured, hey, Liverpool are creating chances. I'm going to go with players on teams that are at least good in terms of Liverpool, good offensively. I'm going to go with an offensive player that's good, playing for a good offensive team. Darwin, obviously Darwin kept being Darwin and scored an offside goal, missed after going past the goalkeeper and got 1 point. And obviously Kane, even though he hadn't hauled at all this season, he's been consistently 8 points, 9 points, 10 points, 7 points, 8 points throughout the season. But this game week, when I sold him, is when he got 16 points. He got 2 goals and assists. And I really should have kept him. But rather than keeping faith in Kane, I kept faith in Foden, Trossard, and Cancelo, the trolls, which I shouldn't have looking back on it. But yet again, like I said, I figured at this point I'm going to back players from teams that are good because I made that mistake with both Newcastle and Arsenal after the World Cup break. I didn't really back them enough. So I figured I'm just going to keep the players that play for good teams and sell the players that don't. Spurs looked awful against Aston Villa and have looked pretty awful for a long while, so that's why I sold Kane. He punished me. I did mention in game week 18, I didn't do any transfers, and I did consider one transfer, and I was selling Reece James and buying Luke Shaw, which obviously would have been amazing because I probably would have benched Cancelo just naturally and played him instead. So I would have had Shaw's 9 points rather than Bueno's 6 points. And that obviously punished me once again in game week 19, where Shaw got 15 points, scoring his first goal in 2 years, keeping a clean sheet. And he got 15 points while Cancelo got 1 point. Because Cancelo, once again, subbed off at the half. Just another knife in the back of me, as well as Foden, subbed off after 59 minutes. And Haaland, finally, I have him as captain. I didn't go with Mitrovic. I went with Haaland as captain. I figured, finally, Haaland differential. Finally, I'm going to get points from Haaland at least. And he blanks. So that's just a parting gift from Pep Guardiola and City to me. I don't like City. I don't know what to do with City players. Do I sell Cancelo and Foden? I'm obviously going to keep Haaland and captain him every week, like I have been as a good boy, that I am. But Cancelo and Foden, at this point, I don't know what to do. I'm screwed regardless. If I sell them, they do well. If I keep them, they do poorly. So I'm probably just going to keep them and try to jinx Man City and make sure that Arsenal win the league. So you can thank me for that, Arsenal fans, after the season if it happens. But yeah, I'm definitely going to triple up on Arsenal as well. Ødegaard, I want to get another Norwegian in. He's been amazing for Arsenal, and I think it's time to get him in. The question is, do I sell Trossard to do that? Probably. Again, Trossard is one of those guys, just performs when you don't have him and struggles when you do have him. He plays Liverpool again, which is why I'm sort of hesitant, because he scored a hat-trick against Liverpool at Anfield. So why not do that again? But he didn't play at all last game, and Brighton looked amazing, so I figured he'll be benched. But anyways, I'll talk more about this in the next podcast that we'll do at the FPL Scope. At that point, I'll be here with my 2 co-hosts, Kevin and Kimo. They'll be back. Kimo's been in Egypt. I just met him yesterday and watched the City game with him. Drowning our sorrows, watching City. Anyways, he's had an amazing time in Egypt, and he's really looking forward to getting back on the podcast. So you'll see that next week. I'm not exactly sure what date it will be, but it will be before the final match of Game Week 19, which will send me further down the ranks, because that's Chelsea against Fulham. That was my one bright spot from this game week, that Mitrovic got the yellow card, which made him ineligible to play in the second game, but still he outscored Haaland, so not much of a gain. And I should have had Shaw, like I said in Game Week 18. If I had done the Shaw transfer, I would have done no transfers this game week, because the reason I did the transfer as well was that I had 2 transfers available. I didn't really want to waste the transfer. So I did Kane to Darwin, which messed me up. But yeah, if I had done the transfer in Game Week 18, then I could have just saved my transfer in Game Week 19 and had 2 transfers for Game Week 20, where when we'll have more of a clear picture of who's going to have double Game Week or not in Game Week 21. So that at least was my thinking. But Kane had to punish me like I have been all season. Only 2 bright spots: Gabriel and Trippier, 6 points and 8 points, kept a clean sheet against each other. Legends. That's pretty much it. But yeah, as I said, you can expect the podcast with Kevin and Kimo next week. And until then, bye-bye, and try to learn from my mistakes, I guess. See ya.